dear compatriots, on this 30th of June 2024, where hope is renewed on the 7th of July, do mobilise yourselves so the people, in fact, can win. Long live the Republic. Long live France.
Marine Le Pen there saying that she hasn't won yet. She asked people to renew your vote. She said, mobilise yourselves. And of course, the second round of voting is going to be next Sunday. She also said she's hoping to have things in place so that Jordan Bardella can become Prime Minister. Right, let's bring John Sparks back in. What did you make of what we heard there from Marine Le Pen?
Well, absolutely ecstatic reception for Marine Le Pen, the leader, the effective leader of National Rally. She will be very happy about this. She has effectively tried to rebrand the party over the last months, over the last years, trying to turn it into a mainstream political outfit. And she will see this as a vindication of that effort. Interesting what she was saying. You've put your trust in us. She said there's nothing more normal than having a political alternative. Again, she's aiming for the mainstream. We are a mainstream political party, she says, not members of the hard right, as we are so frequently described. Be careful to those who will frighten you. No French person will lose their rights, she said. And really that is directed at the coming week. There's a feverish campaigning that will take place as politicians from the left, from the centre, they try to mobilise against National Rally. And you know, this has happened before. What we've seen is the political class. For example, her father made the second round of the presidential runoff, Jean-Marie Le Pen, and you had the political parties in France, they effectively mobilised against Le Pen, Jean-Marie Le Pen. That was back in 2002. You may remember. She'll be wary of that happening again. The fact remains, they are a ultra-nationalist party. She said no French person will lose their rights, but they've been absolutely upfront about the need, they say, for a national preference. French citizens come first, their priorities come first over the needs of immigrants, for example, and foreign nationals. So that's what she's trying to do there. She's trying to put herself in the mainstream. We're a normal party. We're the party for ordinary French people. Vote for us. Don't be frightened by what you're going to hear over the next week.
And John, just to remind people who are just tuning in now, we have had the first exit polls from the French parliamentary election, which gives Marine Le Pen's National Rally party a lead. You can see there 33%. Jordan Bardella there, the man who wants to become the French Prime Minister, and 28.5% for the New Popular Front, that's a left-wing coalition, and 22% for the parties backing Emmanuel Macron. John, just for people who are just tuning in, kind of remind us of the significance of this and how unusual it is, I guess, to have the president's party so far behind in terms of seats for the National Assembly.
Yeah, Ali, I think this is uncharted territory for France. I mean, this country is jumping into the unknown. The political class, I mean, there are rules. There are rules, long-standing rules, that have kept the far right, the hard right, out of political power, and those rules are breaking down. Stage process, two-stage election, but I think those rules are breaking down. 34%, the polls are telling us that National Rally have collected so far. They've done well. I mean, they are out in front, they are ahead. But it is a two-stage election. What you get is you get the best placed candidates for each constituency. There are 577 constituencies in France. The best placed candidates then go on to the second round, and then they compete again in 1 week's time. So it's not over. There's a whole lot of campaigning to come, a whole lot of politicking as well. as politicians try to build alliances to their own benefit. Macron, for example, he is trying to retain influence, some political influence. He will remain the president until 2027. He wants to retain some sort of influence in Parliament. It'd be very, very difficult for him if National Rally form the majority in the National Assembly. They're in charge of the domestic agenda. It would be very messy with the two parties trying to govern this country together.
OK, John Sparks there in Paris, thanks so much. We will come back to the French election very soon. But first, let's briefly talk about what's going on here in the UK, because Nigel Farage has been speaking at a rally in Birmingham where he entered the staged fireworks and said that his Reform UK party believes in having fun and enjoying life. Well, our political editor, Beth Throup was there.
Morning, welcome.
Reform a political home that's proving popular. Thousands gathered in Birmingham for a mass rally to hear from the man they hope can make Britain great again. A Trumpian slogan, and this a US-style gathering. Nigel Farage exploding onto the stage.
Nigel Farage might be controversial, but he has made Reform a real contender in this campaign, and in just 5 days' time he could become an MP for the first time ever, with an even bigger voice in national life, and this time with a democratic mandate.
Welcome to the thinking man and thinking woman's alternative to Glastonbury. Over the course of the next few years, as we're going to be the leading voice of opposition, and I say that because the Conservative Party will be in opposition, but they won't be the opposition, because they disagree with each other on virtually everything.
Many former Conservative voters in this room agree. What did you make of Nigel up there?
Fabulous.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
honest, straightforward.
That's
yeah,
it. It's
brilliant.
not just his charisma, it's the words he says, it's the substance behind the words he says. Yeah. It's not just a blanket approach.
Do you think they're going to do well in the election?
I think there's a lot of silent people who maybe are frightened to come out and say they're going to vote Reform, and I think there's going to be a shock to the system.
This leader looking to take lumps out of the Tories this week and beyond. You have said that you would like to perform a reverse takeover of the Tories. What does that look like?
We are going in our own direction, all right? And if there are people in the Conservative Party that agree with our agenda, they're very welcome to come and join us.
Do you think that the Tories would want to have you in their party now? Someone like Priti Patel has indicated that you wouldn't be welcome, having previously said she wants you there.
I want nothing to do with them. They're awful. They're ghastly.
So you rule out joining the Tory party
They're ghastly.
after a general election?
They betrayed the 2019 election result. Brexit voters, they've no interest in the truth. For them, it's all a game
so to be
about
clear,
being
Nigel,
in power.
you would rule
no
out,
interest.
You would rule out.
Yes.
You would rule it out joining the Conservative Party.
Yeah, this is a new political
That
movement.
was a yes, wasn't it?
I want nothing to do with them.
But homophobic language from Reform's event organiser George Jones clouding this campaign. Were you angry with George when you heard he'd said that?
Well, I was very angry. Of course I was. Furious.
Why were you furious?
The football was on. He was downwind of a few drinks. We can all say silly things when we're a bit half-cut. We all know that.
I don't know. I mean, do people say things like that when they're drunk?
Oh, people say all sorts of things when they're drunk.
Do they?
And often they don't even remember it the next day. But it was awful.
For this Reform candidate, it was all too much. Liam Booth-Isherwood today suspended his campaign in Erewash to back the Tory candidate.
Thank you!
Nigel Farage thinks he's on track now to make real political progress. The celebrations could be about to get much bigger. Whatever the fireworks of the campaign, this leader unbowed. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Birmingham.
And you can see a full list of the candidates standing in the Erewash constituency here. With me now is the Treasury Minister, Bim Aflami. Thanks so much for joining us on a Sunday evening in person. Let's talk first about this candidate from Reform who is now backing the Conservatives. What was your reaction to that?
Well, I'm glad he's seen the light, and I'm glad that the points he's made are really the same ones that I and many other Conservative ministers and MPs, or indeed candidates, have made on the doorsteps over the last few weeks, which is ultimately a vote for Reform means more likely vote for Labour. And I'm afraid that that point is one that he, an actual Reform candidate, has made himself.
You're glad he's seen the light. If Nigel Farage backed the Conservatives, would you be glad that he'd seen the light?
Well, I don't. I think Nigel Farage has no intention of backing the Conservatives. I do find it quite curious, this idea that Farage is somehow a Conservative. He spent 25 years trying to destroy the Conservative Party. So any of the people who, good people who who are thinking of voting Reform or considering it, these are good people. They are, they have their principles. They want to improve the lot of the country. What I say to them is, look at the party. This is not a proto-Conservative party. It's a party designed to increase the power of Labour, not to get the Conservative aims that they want delivered.
I honestly just find it a bit confusing, though, because you're saying,
you're
glad that someone in your party has seen the light. We've had people, senior Conservatives, saying they would welcome Nigel Farage into the party. A couple of days ago, the Prime Minister talked about Nigel Farage abusing Peating. I just honestly don't understand what the Conservative position on Reform actually is.
Quite clear. We're competing against Reform. They have no place in our party.
So what do you think about people in your party who say they do have a place in your party?
Well, who said that?
Suella Braverman said that Nigel Farage would be welcomed. Philip Davies, that we talked to a couple of weeks ago on this programme, said that he'd also welcome Nigel Farage into the party.
Well, look, I think that they're in a small minority. Nigel Farage has spent 25 years opposing the Conservative Party. He is not a Conservative. And I say to people who are watching this or listening to it, that if they want to achieve Conservative ends of lower taxes, securing our borders, stronger armed forces, then the only way to achieve that is a vote for the Conservative candidate. If they vote Reform, they are going to end up with a Labour Parliament and a Labour government going precisely against the direction that they want the country to go in.
Do you accept that those people in the party are causing you problems, that people are wondering what the Conservative Party stands for? Is it the party of Nigel Farage or is it the party of David Cameron?
Well, it's the party of neither.
David
Cameron, of
not
course,
the party
is
of
Foreign
David
Secretary. Well, he is the Foreign Secretary. What I mean is, it is not... Rishi Sunak is the leader of the Conservative Party, and there are all the Conservative MPs and ministers that form the Conservative Party, and indeed are members. Nigel Farage is not a Conservative.
So do you think it's very damaging that some Conservatives seem pretty open to him?
I don't think that's really true. I mean, look, you've taken a very small minority.
It used to be Home Secretary. It's not a random Conservative.
Well, but it's like saying, when you talk about Labour Party, it's like saying, well, it's what is the Labour Party? Is it a party of Jeremy Corbyn? Is it a party of something else?
Well, you guys think it's a party of Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, no, but the truth is that there are people, in the Labour Party who believe things very differently to Keir Starmer, but that is not what you guys highlight in the media. You're not highlighting that at all. All I'm trying to say is that the vast majority of Conservative members, MPs, ministers, etc., know that Nigel Farage has spent a long time opposing the Conservative Party and therefore opposing the Conservative ideals that he purports to support.
OK, let's talk a bit about the French election, this breaking news we've just had in the last few moments that Marine Le Pen's party has come out on top, according to the exit poll. Are you worried about a national rally victory in France?
Look, I must confess that I haven't really been following the French election as closely as I otherwise might have done, because I've been focusing on my own election and indeed in this country. So I'm afraid I really haven't had a chance to follow what's going on there.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on. Marine Le Pen's party has done the best out of all the parties. Would you work this isn't a presidential election, but if she did become president under a Conservative term, would you work with her party?
I'll give you the same answer that I give when people ask about any other country, which is Britain has to work with whoever is chosen as the leader of other countries. And close allies like France, of course, will work with whoever is elected president.
So you'd work with Marine Le Pen?
Of course, whoever is elected president or Prime Minister of France, we have to work with, and I think that's a perfectly sensible position.
Rishi Sunak has said that Nigel Farage would work with Marine Le Pen, and he said it sort of as if it was his criticism.
Well, we're not advocating for Marine Le Pen to win. What I'm saying to you is that you cannot choose, if you're British government or a British member of Parliament, you cannot choose who leads other countries.
It all feels a bit familiar, doesn't it? Emmanuel Macron gambled on an election. It hasn't gone well. It's kind of opened wounds with the right in the country. I guess it feels like, it's a Sunday. It's a moment to maybe take stock the last Sunday before the election. How do you think things have gone? Where has the Conservative Party gone wrong in this campaign?
Well, we'll know what the result is on Thursday night, right? So we don't know what happens. I mean, look...
Do you still think you can win?
No, of course we can. And, we will see what happens. But what I do know is on speaking to constituents, indeed, in my own constituency and elsewhere, there are higher than normal number of undecided people. That is, this is the fourth general election I fought. A large number of people are still saying they don't know which way to go. And my message to them on the doorsteps and here today is, if they want to lower their taxes, secure the borders, make sure that we have a thriving, prosperous economy going forward in the future, a Conservative vote is what they need to do, not vote Reform, not vote Labour or anything else.
On tax, I think we've actually got a graph, hopefully, that we can show you, because you talk about being the party that can cut taxes, but actually the tax burden is going to go up under the Conservative Party. Do you accept that?
Well, no, actually, because there are two things where when people say that, why they're wrong. The first is it depends what the growth rate in the economy is. And actually, I'm confident that our economy will continue to outpace projections, as it has done many times over the previous parliament. Secondly, you talk about the overall tax burden.
But look at this. Look, an 80-year high tax as a proportion of national income. I mean, can you claim to be the tax-cutting party?
Well, we're focusing our tax cuts on ordinary working people. You've given an overall number. That covers the whole economy.
Millions
right?
of people are going to be dragged into higher tax
Well, no,
brackets.
but what we're doing is we're cutting national insurance, right, for ordinary people.
But do you
we're proposing...
Do you accept that graph?
You've given a number looking at the whole economy, but what we are doing is we're saying we are cutting taxes on ordinary working people. We're proposing to eliminate national insurance for self-employed people. We're proposing to continue to cut national insurance for those who are employed. We're proposing to make sure that we limit the amount of extra bureaucracy and tax that small and medium-sized businesses pay. That is the record that we've already begun to deliver on. That's what, no, but
taxes are still
But
going
the
up.
overall tax burden refers to all sorts of things. Refers to people at the very top of the income spectrum. Refers to companies. Refers to all sorts of things, and it's also dependent on how fast the economy grows. So that is not a graph talking about what will happen to ordinary working people. The vast majority.
Well, it is. Ordinary working people are going to be dragged into higher tax brackets.
But what we're doing is we're focusing on cutting their national insurance. And that is real money going to ordinary people. To give you a sense of what that is, that's £900 already off for somebody on average earnings of, say, about £35,000. £900 off from a year before as a result of the two fiscal events, the autumn statement and the budget. We're proposing to continue to go along that line. And for those who are self-employed, by the end of the Parliament, we're going to take away their national insurance completely. So we're focusing our tax cuts to grow the economy and making sure that ordinary working people will have their taxes reduced. And for pensioners, we're making sure that as the state pension rises, which we've raised them by the highest amount ever as a result of the triple lock, which is almost 9% in April, we're going to make sure that is not taxed. So we're going to make sure that we protect the basic state pension for all pensioners. Labour's proposal is to tax the basic state pension for the first time. That's not what we want to do. We're cutting taxes for working people and for pensioners as well.
I want to ask you a bit about Liz Truss, because you worked really closely with her. You were her parliamentary private secretary, so it's kind of as close as you could get when she was in the Foreign Office. Do you think that the Prime Minister's been critical enough of Liz Truss and Boris Johnson? It's obviously something that comes up on the doorstep.
Look, the Prime Minister has chosen his own words in relation to Liz Truss, and frankly, I think he has been quite critical of Liz Truss. Look, I think that it's quite clear that that period of time was not, a good period of time in office, the time she was Prime Minister, but we've moved on from that. And actually, when people look at the record of this Prime Minister and this Chancellor, consider where inflation was at that time, 11%. Consider where the economy was at that time. Consider where the path looked like for the country. And now, the hard work, the hard yards, a lot of which people don't see, put in by, in particular, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, to bring us back to the position where we are now. Interest rates due, or at least according to forecasts, to be cut later this year. Inflation down, back to target. Taxes being cut. All of that is the result of hard work by the Prime Minister and Chancellor.
If the polls are anything like right, there is potentially going to be a leadership race sometime soon. you're seen as a bit of a rising star in the party. Will you be throwing your hat in the ring?
I'm not thinking at all beyond winning my own election.
Well, you're lucky because Jordan Bardella's just appeared, so we'll end that there. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone. My dear compatriots, the overseas territories and abroad, on this Sunday, the 30th of June, the first round of the legislative elections, the French people has responded to the ballot boxes with the most important number of people voting ever. And so now our democracy has been honored, and I'd like to thank the French people for doing so. So 3 weeks after the European elections, which led to these legislative elections, they've given a verdict and they've confirmed their clear hopes for change. So the candidates from the National Rally are at the head and allow them to, in fact, get to the second round with an extraordinary majority. And this is giving us hope throughout the country. And I'd like to express my gratitude, and I would like to tell them to be mobilized until they carry out a final effort next Sunday. So the way in which they'll be voting next Sunday will be one of the most determinant in the whole of the history of the Fifth Republic. So looking at the results, the presidential camp is no longer able to succeed, and the high score of the extreme left does give rise to major concerns. However, the choice is clear, and there are two paths that are opened up to France. On one hand, the alliance of the worst, that of the new Popular Front behind Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who would then lead to the country to disorder, insurrection, and ruin of our economy. And on the other hand, the National Union, and it's an honor for me, alongside Marine Le Pen, Éric Ciotti, and our allies. And this alliance, which is motivated by national interest, is now the only Republican and patriotic rampart that can allow France win, protect our institutions, re-establish security, and have fiscal peace and defend work. And the extreme left is dangerous and has chosen to have as a communitarian candidates who don't care about their attitudes, and they're saying in their project to disarm the police, to open up immigration, and to not fight against squats or Islamist separatism. And now without any kind of moral limits. And this is Mr. Mélenchon and his friends, in fact, are likely to give our country an existential peril. So therefore, this evening, I'd like to call all French people who are attached to their freedom and to drawing up France again. I'd like you to join me to amplify the dynamism and make sure there's national union in face of those who try to divide us and spoil our republic and undermine our values. So next Sunday, if the electors give us an absolute majority, I hope to be the Prime Minister of all the French people, and I hope to be able to listen to each and every one of you, to respect the oppositions, open up to dialogue, and concerned at every moment for the unity of the nation. And I would hope to be the Prime Minister, the everyday Prime Minister, he who will consider, in fact, there to be a defense of purchasing power, re-establishing order and security throughout the territory, and of course to deal with our migratory policy once again. And I hope to be Prime Minister of cohabitation, to respect, in fact, the function of the President of the Republic, but I'll be intransigent as far as our policy at the service of France and at the service of French people. So there are just 7 days when we will, in fact, be able to make a historic choice. And I hope that the campaign will be peaceful, respectful of the institutions and democratic rules. And to all French people, men and women, I would like to say that I will always be the guarantor of your rights, of your freedoms, and of our Republican stance, which unites all French people in the same promise: freedom, equality, and fraternity. And now there've got to be some people at the head of the country who understand you, who think about you, and who love you as much as they love France. Next Sunday, victory is possible, and the alternative is possible. So France and the Republic have got to succeed. Let us be united. Let us gather together. Let us be mobilized for change. Long live France, and long live the Republic.
Bardella there, the man who wants to be the French Prime Minister. OK, well, there is another big breaking story on the continent tonight. In Cologne, in Germany, at Euro 2024 tonight, of course, because in the last few moments, England have managed a dramatic late turnaround against Slovakia to go through to the quarter-finals. England got off to another sluggish start. After 13 minutes, Kyle Walker was caught out, letting through Lucas Haraslin. Well, that warning wasn't heeded by England, with Ivan Schranks giving Slovakia the lead midway through the first half, putting it past Jordan Pickford. Well, Harry Kane came close with this 78th minute header, which went narrowly wide. Just before this, Declan Rice's shot came off the woodwork and Harry Kane tried to follow it up. And the weekend he turned 21 years old. There he is. Jude Bellingham got England out of jail with a 95th minute bicycle kick. Then England scored 50 seconds into extra time with captain's Harry Kane's header turning the game around. Rob Harris is there for us. We've been presenting this programme, but sounds like... Oh, sorry, I was going to say Harry Kane saved the day.
This barely seems imaginable to be thinking of England in the quarter-finals. They looked completely down and out. They were heading home with embarrassment. Then Jude Bellingham's brilliant saved England in the 4th minute of injury time when time was running out and momentum then shifted in England's favour. Harry Kane, struggling so much in the game, was clinical in the 1st minute of extra time. That header ultimately sealing England's passage. But this was a game that was drifting away from England. They looked so disjointed. They were completely in a shambles. They were so ragged against a team 40 places above them in the world rankings. England looking nothing like the world's 5th best team. We were preparing to be talking about another day of English embarrassment in a last 16 game at Euros, just like in 2016. But somehow these players have produced the goods for Gareth Southgate. In his 99th game in charge, if they'd lost this, he would have been leaving the job and England would have been going home. But now the Three Lions are into a quarter-final against Switzerland, and this could be just the lift that they've been looking for, because the performance in this game was a reflection of what we'd seen so far in the 3 group stage matches. They were drab, they were dreary, they were struggling to create any chances, and they secured their passage into this knockout phase with just 1 win and 2 draws. Then, in this game, they were being completely outrun. Slovakia were looking the more dangerous. They were creating all the chances, and you had Jordan Pickford in the England goal scrambling to save them just to keep it at 1-0. And Jude Bellingham really has been a sensation. At Real Madrid in the last year, at just 20, now 21 years old, he's been producing for them so many mesmerising moments, and he's managed to do it for his country when they needed it most, when they were preparing to be dumped out. And the overhead kick he produced was a moment of absolute brilliance. And yeah, then Kane as the leading scorer, showing why he is, why he's done it so many times for his country, producing that winner. For many, this might evoke memories of the 1990 World Cup when David Platt scored for England in the 120th minute to send them into the quarter-finals with a victory over Belgium. Ultimately, they reached the semi-finals in that tournament. This England side know what it's like to reach a final. They did so against Italy 3 years ago, only to lose that final. Maybe now they have the momentum back on their side, and this is a platform for them to build on as they try to emulate the Lionesses 2 years ago by becoming champions of Europe. They're in it, they're still in it, but it was so close for them to be going home.
And Rob, I mean, is this going to be enough, do you think, to appease the Gareth Southgate doubters?
Well, I mean, some of those doubters will have had very little faith in him throughout the 90 minutes. He made the changes that were needed. He'll be assessing the squad now. He's got Mark Gay, the defender who was booked inside 3 minutes, who is suspended now for the next match. And that was one of 3 early suspensions that just showed how sort of chaotic and lacking in cool heads England were. But he does now have several days to try to reassess his squad, to look at who made the impact. Kobe Mainoo, who came into the midfield, was the only change. Does he need to shake things up completely? Some of the talk before this game about whether he needed to rest Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane because they'd been struggling to have an impact. Well, ultimately it was Bellingham and Kane at the opposite ends of their England careers who did come to the rescue. But he will be now looking about whether, you know, someone like Anthony Gordon needs to come in from the start. Ivan Toney created the goal for Harry Kane. He's a newcomer into this tournament as well, so showing those additional attacking options. But I've got to say, some of the England fans leaving now, they were booing at half-time. They were booing throughout parts of the second half. We encountered some fans leaving the stadium in the 90th minute. We'd come out to go on air ready to break news. We thought of an England defeat, and we were telling them that actually Bellingham had saved them. Maybe now those England fans might have a bit more confidence in this side. But England avoided an embarrassment in a tournament that has already produced a shock. The holders went out yesterday. Italy beaten by Switzerland, who are now the next opponents for England. So these tournaments can produce shocks, but England have survived a scare and just about made it through to the last 8.
Thanks so much, Rob. Well, Sky's Media Harper joins us from central London. She's been with fans. What a night, Amelia, the highs and lows. Tell us about it.
Well, it's been an absolute roller coaster for fans here, but of course England are now through to the next stage of the Euros. Let's just, here you can hear them. Take a look just to my left, down there. You've got lots of people dancing to Freddie Mercury, I believe. There is beer being thrown. It is all going on here as people are absolutely thrilled that England have beaten Slovakia. It was an incredibly tense match. Let's take you through here because we're sort of on 2 levels, down there and up here as well. We've got a number of people dancing here. Look at this. Have we got any moves? There we go, fans incredibly happy. It was a tough start for England. They conceded that first goal to Slovakia, but then it all changed on a knife edge. But let's speak to some fans. We've got benches down here even. This is the atmosphere that we got going on. We've got some England fans down here. I'm going to take...
Come on, England!
How happy are you guys? Talk to me.
Through to the next round. Come on, we're having it.
It's Callum's birthday today, so he's super happy that we won.
Yes.
Is this a good birthday treat for you?
Oh, I can't get no better. He's coming home, lad. He's coming home.
And how do you guys think England performed today? It was a slow start, wasn't it?
I'll be dead honest, it was a useless start. But after we scored that goal, I think it's time to kick on now. We're going to really kick on after this.
That really seemed to be the moment when things changed.
A lot better in extra time there as well. I'm confident going forwards in this.
Do you think it was the pressure, England suddenly thinking we've only got these 6 extra time minutes to go and we have to do something?
That's just magic.
Definitely.
That's magic. Scoring like that is magic. There's no other words around that. That's magic.
England for you. Limited to the last minute and it is coming on. Come on.
I mean, the pressure very much has been on Gareth Southgate. Do you think he can deliver England to go further than this?
I'm not sure. He loves Southgate. I'm not sold on him, but hopefully...
Go on, what do you think?
For me personally, he's been our most successful manager since winning the World Cup. I don't know anyone could deny him. I don't know who people want instead of him. You've got to go with him. All the way. We're going all the way. It's coming home.
OK, what do you think is going to be the next match? We've got, obviously, Switzerland. Guys, what do you think about the goals? What are we going to be looking at? Can you tell me?
They are a great side, but you've got to fancy us to beat Switzerland. You have to fancy.
Why?
Just the players we have on paper. We're the better side. There's no doubt. It's time for us to win it. It's time. We've been to the quarters, the semis. It's time for us to win it now.
And this is a great atmosphere, isn't it? 2-0. We've had it. We've had it called 2-0 England. And ladies, what about you? What was the best?
Harry Kane for the second. Ian Tempest.
He's saying Harry Kane for one of the goals there, like we had today. That was really, really tense. Ladies, what was the best bit about the match for you? Because that first goal and then that second goal really had everything going here.
So their moods changed. We were ready for a bad mood for the rest of the afternoon. They scored and we were like...
And the atmosphere completely changed in here. It was a really good atmosphere after those goals.
It was a good atmosphere, and the party atmosphere really has begun. Take a look through here. We've got almost what looks a bit more like a disco going on through there, as fans are incredibly happy to be in this position. They will face Switzerland next, but who knows? This match was incredibly tense. Who knows how the next match is going to go? But you can hear fans now cheering for this England team.
Amelia, thanks so much. Great stuff, bringing us a slice of that fan zone. Right, let's just quickly show you this from Rishi Sunak. He has said it is not over till it's over. Rishi Sunak tweeting there about the football. Right, let's bring in our panel for the first time this evening. Lucy Fisher, the Whitehall editor at the FT, and Louisa Porritt, the former Lib Dem MEP. Sorry it's taken us so long. There's been a lot of breaking news. Lucy, I mean, the Prime Minister's going to need a bit of extra time. You saw his tweet there. How are things going? I've seen your paper. Is it today that you've backed the Labour Party, your paper?
Yes, that's right. So the editorial board of the Financial Times, which I don't sit on,
Yes.
so I work for the paper, has come out today endorsing
That does feel quite
Labour.
significant, I guess.
It's really significant. It's the first time since 2005. The FT doesn't have a natural political allegiance. And in fact, being a very pro-free trade and private enterprise newspaper, wanting to see a very open, outward-looking Britain, has more often supported the Tories than Labour. So it does feel significant. And that op-ed, that leader, which you can buy in tomorrow's paper, it's the pink one on the shelf, makes clear that the FT views this as a sea change moment in British politics, akin to either 79 when Thatcher swept to power or 97 when Tony Blair came in.
Really interesting. And Louise, I mean, you saw Rishi Sunak's tweet there. Can he turn it around at this late stage?
Well, Gareth Southgate might have been saved for now, but I'm not sure the same is the case for Rishi Sunak. I think he's probably run out of road.
We've had this endorsement from a Reform candidate today. Do you think that plays well for the Conservative Party? It just feels like they haven't quite got their line on reform.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting interview that you had with BIM earlier. They do seem to be a bit of a split party these days, and they're struggling to keep a coalition of voters together, not least more widely in the country, geographically, kind of slightly different voters in the south of the country where the Liberal Democrats are competitive with the Conservatives typically, and in those red wall seats, which Labour is very likely to take back off of them. So I think they find themselves in a bit of a bind in the same way that Labour did previously when they were quite split between the kind of centre and the far left. But also it's just clear, talking to voters, talking to people who've been out campaigning a lot as well, and looking at the polls, that voters are just fed up of 14 years of Conservative government. They want to change, and I don't think that there's much realistically that an endorsement this late in the campaign is going to change for them.
Lucy, I'm interested to hear your take on this, because, I mean, it feels like, I don't know if you agree, the gloves have come off in the last few days when it comes to the Conservative attacks on reform. Do you think that should have happened sooner? And do you think they've kind of finessed their line on this?
I don't think the attacks are as important as the strategy that the Tories have pursued up until now. It did seem like right from the moment that Rishi Sunak called the snap election, that bizarre spectacle in the pouring rain, that they have been trying to tack to the right to, pick off Reform voters. And they've realised only late on that that isn't necessarily a winning strategy. And now they're feeling more empowered to kind of attack Reform. I think previously they'd worried about offending voters that they wanted to win back. Now they see the need to try and kind of launch some salvos against Nigel Farage. I do feel that we've had peak Reform, we've reached peak Farage in this electoral cycle after his very controversial comments about Putin, after the controversies around these alleged racist and sexist remarks that were uncovered by Channel 4 in the past few days. It does feel like their support is slipping. That's shown in the polls slightly from the kind of high watermark they've had in the past few weeks. But of course, it's so close now to election day, just 4 days to go, and Labour's 20-point lead over the Conservatives looks pretty much rock solid.
While we've got you, because you obviously have been an MEP, I do want to talk about the French election, which has been the kind of big breaking news in this programme. I guess, what was your reaction? A lot of people did think that Marine Le Pen's party would do well. I guess just give us a bit of a sense of the history, because it's very unusual, isn't it, for the party, a party that the president is part of, to come third.
Yeah, it's depressing. It's worrying that the far right has done so well, but it's also not surprising because we saw that Marine Le Pen's party came top in the recent European elections. And we knew that it was a gamble by Macron to call this election immediately afterwards. I think in a way he felt like he didn't really have a choice because Le Pen would have put that pressure on him anyway. And so he probably would have been bounced into it. And he also didn't really have the numbers in Parliament to see through key legislation and to continue as it was. But it's incredibly worrying that they've done so well for the first time. And Marine Le Pen might have tried to sanitise her party, but we all know the reality of the ideology and the views that that party is rooted in historically. I found it curious that she was talking about only the far left being an anti-Semitic party, for example, when her party has a very strong history, sadly, of being anti-Semitic and racist as well. But what's interesting is this is changing the dynamics within French politics. And so just in the last few minutes, we've heard that Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's from the far left, and Emmanuel Macron are going to work together to keep the far right out of power for the second round. So there is still a pathway, actually, for Macron and his party to remain in power, probably in some kind of coalition if they succeed in getting the numbers. So one of the things that they're going to do is Mélenchon has said that his candidates, where they've come third, they would stand aside for Macron's candidate to have the greatest chance of winning and keeping the far right out.
That's really interesting. And it did feel from Marine Le Pen there like she was trying to we've seen her trying to soften her image and soften her party. And Lucy, I guess the kind of broader picture here, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've had the kind of rise of the right in European countries like the Netherlands, in France, and we're about to elect a leader from the left, probably, if the polls are right. What do you think? I mean, what do you think this means for the UK? There are warnings that if National Rally do get into power, it could be bad for the UK economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think not least because it would be a cohabitation, as they call it, a characteristically French term for an unhappy political marriage between the far right, Jordan Bardella as Prime Minister, if he makes it over the line, and Macron remaining president. That would mean the National Rally dealing with the domestic affairs, the day-to-day, setting the budget. Traditionally, in the Republic system in France, the president deals with the armed forces, defence and foreign policy. But Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella have suggested they wouldn't necessarily allow Macron to set the tone on foreign policy. So I think that could potentially spook markets, the way that National Rally have taken a step forward today. And indeed, it will give pause for thought for allies such as the UK about kind of France as an ally on the international stage.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And on the international stage, there's going to be a few events quite early on in a Starmer premiership. There's going to be the NATO anniversary. There's the European political meeting, which is here in the UK. Do you think, I mean, it's going to be a steep learning curve. Do you think he's ready?
Well, he's been getting out there and building those relationships for some time because I think he's been anticipating that he probably will be Prime Minister for some time. And one thing I'll take as a positive is that he has been looking to rebuild relationships with our European partners. I would like to see him go a bit further than he has. Labour have ruled out rejoining the single market or the customs union, for example, but actually rebuilding trust with our international partners, not just in Europe, is critical for Britain because there's a real feeling that we've kind of lost our way on the international stage. But as you say, quite a lot of hurdles ahead for Starmer, actually. I mean, he may be working with President Trump come November, and that will be challenging.
Thank you so much. I wish we could stay for longer, but there's been so much news this evening. We're going to have to leave it there. That is it from us tonight. Sophie is going to be back tomorrow at 7 o'clock as we enter the election week. Lots more on the French parliamentary elections to come here on Sky News, so do stay with us.